have everyone come on closer down, s'il vous plaît. Bonsoir, bienvenue. Pour tous ceux qui sont assis derrière, si vous pouvez, s'il vous plaît, vous déplacer et nous joindre plus bas. Okay. Once again, good afternoon, esteemed guests, dignitaries, scholars, and of course, all members of the public who have joined us today in the beautiful city of Conakry, as well as those following us, of course, viewing our proceedings virtually. I am Madam Sako Fatima Karoma. I will be your program director for today's important day and delightful event. We gather here in this dynamic city in Conakry, Republic of Guinea, for the 13th Thabo Mbeki Africa Day lecture as a first outside of South Africa, truly manifesting the TMF's commitment to being a Pan-African organization. Before we formally start, it is only befitting that we start with our opening prayers to invoke blessings and guidance for our today's event. May I humbly invite our respected Imam Bangura and our Reverend, the Catholic Bishop Reverend Raphael Sano, on the stage to lead us in the opening. Their words will help to set the tone for our discussion and ensure we approach and subject matter with wisdom and compassion.
C'est ça ton problème. Non, si c'est ça mon problème. Je vais travailler avec les gens là, vous voulez encore ici là. On va vous débrouiller nous qui sommes ici.
Tu es technicien. Quand on te donne un problème, il faut écouter d'abord, il ne faut pas parler, tu écoutes. On a eu ce problème avec l'encabine, j'ai voulu te remonter l'information un jour, mais j'attends la prochaine.
Please welcome Imam Bangura and Reverend.
La femme, lui, il a fallu des techniciens, c'est qui ça?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف خلق الله محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Monsieur le Président, Thabo Mbeki, Excellence Thabo Mbeki, Monsieur le Ministre des Affaires étrangères et des Guinéens étrangers, Son Excellence Monsieur Mori Sanda,
His Excellency Dr. Morrison.
Mesdames et Messieurs, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
My greetings to you.
Je voudrais d'abord remercier et féliciter cette assemblée d'avoir choisi d'ouvrir cette cérémonie par le nom d'Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Le prophète Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam a dit Kullu amrin dhi balin la yuftah bi dhikrillah fa huwa abtar. Il dit toute chose importante qui n'est pas commencée par le nom de Dieu est inutile. Donc Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, cette assemblée a choisi votre nom pour débuter cette cérémonie. Je vous prie Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala de bénir cette assemblée et d'y mettre la baraka, bénir toutes les activités qui vont se passer ici ce soir. اللهم صل وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت وباركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم احسن عاقبتنا في الأمور كلها وأجرنا من خزي الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة. اللهم وفقنا لما تحبه وترضاه. اللهم وفقنا لما تحبه وترضاه. اللهم خذ بناصيتنا إلى ما فيه صلاح البلاد والعباد. اللهم خذ بناصيتنا وبنواصينا إلى ما فيه صلاح العباد والعباد. ربنا اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معصيتك ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك ومن اليقين ما تحول به علينا مصائب الدنيا ومتعنا اللهم بأسمائنا وأبصارنا وقواتنا ما أحييتنا واجعله الوارث منا واجعل ثارنا على من ظلمنا وانصرنا على من عادانا ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا إلى النار مصيرنا سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
This is the minister in charge of religious affairs of the country of Guinea. He just made some blessings.
Seigneur notre Dieu, le Dieu d'Abraham, d'Isaac et de Jacob, le Dieu qui a créé le ciel et la terre,
brothers in Christianity.
Toi qui as dit dans Proverbe 16:3, recommande tes œuvres à l'Éternel et tes projets réussiront. Seigneur, c'est un plaisir, une joie pour moi d'être là en ton nom, pour m'adresser à toi en faveur de cette fondation. Seigneur, tu as créé ce jour et tu l'as créé merveilleux. C'est toi qui as fait les autorités de ce pays. Nous te remercions pour la vie des autorités de ce pays. Nous prions que tu les fortifies. Nous prions que tu les encourages. Nous prions que tu veilles sur eux. Nous prions, Seigneur, que tu leur donnes la sagesse, l'intelligence de diriger ce pays dans ta volonté. Et nous prions que la transition se passe dans d'excellentes conditions et que la violence qui a commencé dans le pays, que tu apaises et enlèves cette violence au nom de Jésus-Christ de Nazareth. Seigneur, nous continuons à prier pour l'autorité, parce que l'Afrique du Sud et la Guinée, depuis le départ, avec les premiers leaders, les deux pays ont collaboré ensemble jusqu'à l'indépendance de l'Afrique du Sud. C'est une joie pour nous de voir aujourd'hui le second président de l'Afrique du Sud dans ce pays.
The second president of South Africa creating and representing this foundation who has never existed before. We pray that you give him all the strength and wisdom and light them. And we entrusted you this responsibility. The one with foundation succeeds, and that all people that will be chosen to lead this foundation dirige in integrity and honesty, so that both intelligence and wisdom prevails and lead them to the right direction. We really thank you that President Thabo Mbeki, that we have heard and we saw, and all things and work that he did in South Africa, that he may help us lead us here in Guinea to succeed in the transition of Guinea. We ask you that his voice be heard everywhere he goes and anywhere he will be at any time. On behalf of Jesus Christ, in the name of Jesus Christ, come next to the President of Guinea, that he be helped to be completing this work, so that he faith in the name of God again. We really pray that you take out and wipe away all violence in Guinea, so that we come back to peace. Peace be restored and work together, so that, because you are the man who made Guinea and the population of Guinea, you are the one who created Guinea, and all Guineans be happy and enrich the soil and the territory, so that we won't have any ethnicity problems, that we speak only one language, on one word. You have created the one. We only speak of Guineans in Guinea, in the name of Jesus Christ. Thank you, Jesus Christ. All the glory is to you. We pray that everything succeeds in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Be glory, be sanctified. Amen.
Thank you, Imam, Amara, and Bishop Sano, for your inspiring words. In honor of our shared African unity and spirit, let us now rise and pay respect to our shared heritage and dreams with the playing of the national anthems. We will first be proud to hear the strains of the national anthem of the Republic of Guinea, and will be followed by the national anthem of the African Union.
Quand on va parler, de parler un peu en haute voix, parce que notre unité. Oh, les filles de l'Afrique, chère du soleil et chère du ciel, faisons de l'Afrique l'arbre de vie. Unissons tous et chantons en chœur. Oh, les liens qui déterminent notre destin, consacrons-nous tous au combat pour la paix. Dieu durable et la justice sur terre. Oh, ces filles de l'Afrique, chère du soleil et chère du ciel, faisons de l'Afrique l'arbre de vie. Unissons-nous tous et travaillons dur afin de donner le meilleur de nous à l'Afrique, berceau de l'humanité et source de Dieu. Notre fierté et notre espérance au point du jour. Oh, fils et filles de l'Afrique, chère du soleil et chère du ciel, faisons de l'Afrique l'arbre de vie.
Thank you for joining us for this display of unity and respect. Please be seated. As we gather here today, we are reminded of the call made by our African political leaders in 1963. The 25th of May must be used to focus on advancing the goals of the continent has set for itself. We honor this commitment to our beloved continent and the diverse people who call it home. It is particularly significant that we find ourselves in Conakry, Guinea this year, the first time ever for this event to be outside of South Africa. This shift speaks to the Pan-African vision the Thabo Mbeki Foundation embodies and is committed to. Guinea is a nation of rich history and potential, and it stands as a beacon of hope in our collective African journey. I would like to take a moment to thank our generous sponsors, Anglo Gold Ashanti, the African Development Bank, and MTN Group. Without their support, this event wouldn't be possible. Anglo Gold Ashanti, the African Development Bank, and MTN Group, your commitment to the promotion of African unity, the development, and intellectual discourse is truly commendable. We appreciate your contribution and your shared vision in creating a prosperous Africa. This afternoon, we are in for an intellectual treat. We will hear Professor Siba Grovogui, a highly esteemed Guinean political scientist and scholar, who will enlighten us on the challenges of fragility and security in West Africa and how these intersect with the economic development. His insights are of paramount of importance as we consider the future of our continent and how we can collectively move towards progress and prosperity. Today's lecture is not merely about listening. It is an invitation for all of us to engage critically and thoughtfully, to question, to learn, and to imagine a future where our continent is defined by peace, prosperity, and progress. This event is also a testament of the power of knowledge and dialogue as a catalyst for the transformative change. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that our gathering takes place amidst the reality and challenges of the rapidly evolving global context. As we navigate through these uncertain times, let us remember that through unity, dialogue, collaboration, we will overcome the obstacles in our path. Let us remember the words of the great Ghanaian scholar and Pan-Africanist, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who once said, "I am not an African because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me." As we delve into today's proceedings, let us keep these words close to our hearts as a reminder of our shared African unity, our shared challenges, and our shared aspirations. To remind us of our roots, we've seen the video called I Am Africa. The purpose of that video was to remind us of our roots, our shared identity, our collective hope for the future, to pay attention to where we should be heading towards. Now, I would like to invite the minister. So the video has passed already, so sorry. Thank you. Your attention is much appreciated. For now, formally welcome us and to share his thoughts to his significant event. I am honored to invite to the podium the esteemed Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Morizala Koyati.
Est-ce que la traduction est assurée pour le président?
Ça, c'est français.
C'est bon. C'est bon?
Yes, it's good. Is everything all right?
Yes.
So can now? Not yet. It's not working. Yeah.
Oui, c'est ça.
Est-ce que vous entendez? Est-ce que vous entendez? Est-ce qu'il y a la traduction? Est-ce qu'il y a la traduction? Il n'y a pas de traduction. D'accord. Je vais...
Ça, c'est pas toi qui te passe.
Est-ce que vous entendez maintenant? Est-ce que
Do you hear me? Can you hear me? I want to make sure everything
Now
is
it's
all
okay.
right.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Can you hear me? Is everything all right?
Thank you.
Merci.
I was worried.
Thank you.
Excellence,
Your Excellency
Monsieur le Président, cher frère
and dear brother,
Thabo Mbeki,
Mr. Thabo Mbeki,
Excellence, Mesdames et Messieurs
Your Excellency,
les ambassadeurs,
ambassadors,
chers invités, Mesdames et Messieurs,
dear guests, ladies and gentlemen,
Your Excellency, dear brother,
the occasion that governs us.
thank you for coming in Guinea.
Merci d'être venu en
On
Guinée.
behalf
Thank you for
of the
coming here.
President of Guinea, His Excellency Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya,
I have never
President of Transition, President of CNRD, Chief of Army. I would like to thank you for choosing Guinea to celebrate Africa Day here for the first time for your foundation. Once again, we are in front of our artificial division between Francophone and Anglophone, so we cannot talk here Swahili or Mandingo or Fulani or Kwasa. We should not need to have translation, but this is our past. So allow me, President, to speak in French, because most of the participants are francophones. Excellences, Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs, au nom du chef de l'État, Son Excellence Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya,
His Excellency Mamadi Doumbouya,
Président du CNRD,
President of Transition,
je voudrais vous souhaiter, Monsieur le Président, la bienvenue à
I would like to wish you a welcome in Guinea on behalf of President Mamadi Doumbouya,
terre de nos grands-pères.
on the Guinean soil or territory.
Quand je dis non, c'est à la fois vous, les Sud-Africains, et nous,
When
les Guinéens.
former President Sékou Touré said no to the French, it was both for the entire Africa and Guinea itself.
C'est un honneur immense pour
It's an immense honor
pour le peuple de Guinée,
for the Guinean
pour
people
le gouvernement guinéen,
and the entire Guinean
et
government,
singulièrement pour le président de la transition,
and particularly for the President of Transition, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya,
Son Excellence
to see
Thabo Mbeki,
His Excellency President Thabo Mbeki
choisi pour sa fondation
coming here in Guinea with his foundation
célébrer
to celebrate
pour la première fois
for the very first time
la journée de l'Afrique.
the African Union.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President,
c'est vous qui avez choisi la Guinée.
it's you who chose Guinea. That's right.
Vous ne vous êtes pas trompé.
You did not mistake at all.
Nul autre pays en Afrique
No other country in Africa
ne peut se réclamer
would claim
du président Nelson Mandela
President Nelson Mandela
que cette terre a
that Guinea itself, we have the right and we are own people to claim him, to have rights on
ne
him.
souhaite pas la bienvenue.
We wish him
On
welcome.
vous montre votre place dans votre case.
We would not have put you in the right house here. Him.
Le président Nelson Mandela,
If President Nelson Mandela were here
avec votre propre vénéré père,
with all your own fight,
pour sceller avec le président Ahmed Sékou Touré
to seal with former President Sékou Touré,
panafricanisme, la lutte
to set up and
pour la
fight
libération de l'Afrique.
for Pan-Africanism and fight against colonialism and the entry of the white people on the continent.
Nous étions jeunes,
I was very young,
mais nous pouvons nous souvenir.
but I know what was happening.
Tous les samedis, je le disais ici,
And every other single country in Africa were having refuge in Guinea.
tous les samedis,
Every
les
Saturday,
élèves de la Guinée sortaient pour faire le tour de nos villes.
he would go out and try to tour the city.
À Labé, à Kilia,
We would go to Kindia, to Labi, everywhere on
nous
Saturdays.
avions un rituel à Guinée.
And he used to do that, and he tried to train on that.
En disant,
And said
libérez Mandela, libérez
he was
Mandela,
chanting
libérez
and making a
Mandela.
slogan, "Free Nelson Mandela, free Mandela,
Abat l'apartheid.
Abba apartheid, fall down to
Nous avons
apartheid."
grandi avec ça.
We grew up in that, with chanting that,
Libération du président
until
Nelson Mandela.
they set President Mandela free.
Lorsqu'il
until he set himself free. They set themselves free. We didn't free them. I went to South Africa in Robben Island, and I saw on my eyes the African Union, the unions. And was it him? Where Mandela was, President Mandela. Like a cage. But and that did not deter them from their goodwill and their determination to set South Africa free. Peace. They went out from this inhuman fight and inhuman struggle. The hatred that we should have had against those who tortured them in the past for nothing. But they did not retaliate. And then there's that also on behalf of Guinea. We say we forgive. We accept. We accept that as a sacrifice. And we want to do that in a united Africa. That's it. You, Mr. President, you grew up beside or alongside the fight. You grew up in the fight and struggle in apartheid system. That's why you now hold a position, you and I, in Africa. At this point, at this time, you are the right and rightful successor of President Mandela. Legitimate successor. You have to be proud of that. And next to you, I am very proud to have been and chosen as the recipient, beneficiaries of the Nelson Mandela Prize of the United Nations on behalf of peace. That was not for me only, it was only for the Guinean people and population. So when you choose Guinea to start your tour, implement your foundation, I think you did not mistake at all. That's why President Doumbouya entrusted me and has asked me to thank you, to tell you that as of today, the Thabo Mbeki Foundation has a second home, that is Guinea. A second headquarters, that is in Guinea. Any event or happening that should occur that can help enlighten or brighten your foundation will be our common fight, and will be going in that respect. This fight against apartheid and enslavement, against corruption, that's one of these stronghold words. It's what we are fighting against as well. But your position right now may be better than yesterday, because right now your powers are somehow you are still fighting, and President Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, again, welcome to Guinea. Welcome back to your country. And on behalf of President and on behalf of the Guinean population, we say thank you. Thank you for the population you have chosen. This is the land of Miriam Makeba. Here, that was her scene. This stage, she has occupied it several times. This is where she has been producing and performing. This is where She has been speaking to the world from this very same stage where I stand. This is from where she was fighting and combating South African's apartheid system. This stage is brings to Mandela. Is yours as well. This land is yours. This stage that has been addressing the entire world, and the world has also been listening from here. I would like to thank you. You did not mistake. Welcome to Guinea, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for your very sound speech and the enlightenment and the wisdom that it has procured us.
Thank you very much, Thabo, Program Director. And thank you very much, Your Excellency, Minister Kuyate, for that very warm welcome. And I must also say thanks a lot to His Excellency the President, Doumbouya, for receiving us very well yesterday. And we continue to extend to him our respect. So, Honorable Minister, Your Excellency, Your Excellencies, ambassadors and members of the diplomatic corps, and dear friends, as people have said, the Africa Day lecture has been given, now extended, delivered for 12 years. And we've done all of that within South Africa. But indeed, we're always conscious of the fact that this was not a South African lecture, but an African lecture. And indeed, I must also say that our friends across the continent have raised that thing with us for many times, to say we must not deliver this lecture only from South Africa, but also from other countries on our continent. And Your Excellency, Minister, indeed, we are very, very glad indeed that we could come to Guinea as the first country after all of these other 12 years in South Africa. And indeed, you are quite right, Minister, that this was not an accident, because Guinea is a particular place. Guinea is a particular place in the struggle for our own liberation. It's a unique place, and indeed we were privileged ourselves, a privilege to come here for the purpose of this lecture. And I must say, not to take too much time, Your Excellency, because there are many other people around the world who are listening. I'm sure they are very impatient to hear our lecturer, our esteemed lecturer. Very, very glad indeed that we have as our lecturer today, our esteemed lecturer, the Africa Day lecture, Professor Grovogui, who is with us here, born in Guinea, and an outstanding African scholar who is teaching international relations theory in African political thought at Cornell University in the United States. Your Excellency, Minister, whenever we've asked people to deliver this lecture, It's also always on the basis of our respect for their intellect, our respect for their commitment to Pan-Africanism, our respect for their commitment to honesty. And so that's been our assessment of Professor Grovogui, that here we would have an outstanding African lecturer, an esteemed lecturer, who would say something valuable not only to us in this hall, but throughout our continent and the African diaspora, say something very significant about the state of the continent and what we need to do, essentially to achieve the renaissance of the continent. To give an indication, Your Excellency Minister, about the thinking of our esteemed lecturer, Professor Grovogui, I want to quote, I hope it won't be too long, a response he got to a question that was posed to him in 2021. And the question was, how has the way you understand the world changed over time? And what or who promoted the most significant shifts in your thinking? And this was part of his response, Your Excellency. He said the war in Iraq shattered the window of opportunity after the collapse of the Cold War. The idea that we could return to the basis upon which the new world under the UN Charter was founded, multilateralism, mutual coexistence, mutual respect, rule of law, everybody abiding by international law, etc. The Iraq War, for me, closed that window. And what was frightening was that in official Europe, there was actually no situation, no sanction at any level, no any unambiguous condemnation afterwards by any incorporated European body. And they say all of those things have echoes. If African people can permit themselves to say, quote, we don't care about the International Criminal Court, unquote, it's partly because of Iraq. The lack of consequences for it led many to the conclusion that there was no universal justice, universal humanitarian morality, universal jurisdiction. European doublespeak around the world also said this, a lot about European self-doubts about United States unilateralism. It was also caused many to rethink whatever expectations they had about the emergent role of Europe in the post-Cold War era. The debates about the fallout of the Iraq War were as much about Europe as they were about the US, because people had hoped that Europe could rally around traditions such as the Geneva Conventions, the norms against aggression, and so on. He said at some point, Bush went to war against the public sentiment of America because the majority were opposed to it. But still, he had those core groups in the public that were for it and thought they could afford immunities and the right to a re-election. He's saying, Your Excellency, that we need to define for ourselves, to think for ourselves. As he's giving an assessment here of the war of Iraq, what happened there, and what it means for us as Africans. And not to be deluded by the mere use of words about multilateralism, mutual coexistence, mutual respect, rule of law, when people are actually, the people who pronounce those ideas very forcefully are precisely the same people who violate them. We are very, very glad that we have him, Professor Grovogui, a Guinean, to talk to us today, to deliver to talk for us today, the Africa Day lecture. And I'm sure he will speak as much with such honesty about our continent as he did then when he answered that question. Professor Grovogui, please. Thanks a lot.
Excellences, Monsieur le Président Thabo Mbeki, Excellences, Monsieur le Ministre des Affaires étrangères, Excellences les ambassadeurs, Messieurs les ambassadeurs et Madame les ambassadrices, honorables invités, je m'appelle Siba Grovogui. Je suis originaire de Guinée, diplômé de Cabral Abdel Nasser, promotion Bianzin. Je suis très attaché à la Guinée. Aujourd'hui, j'appartiens à un groupe de Guinéens qui se réunit depuis 2 ans et demi maintenant, qui s'appelle Horizon Républicain. C'est au nom de ce groupe que j'ai proposé en partie qu'on vienne en Guinée pour la journée de l'Afrique. Notre but, c'est d'envisager de meilleures institutions pour notre pays et pour l'Afrique.
Our themes have been consistent with the themes of today, an African Renaissance. Before going further in my speech, please allow me to set a special word. I am a professor, but I have very come. I spoke about an institution that is specialized, and I told you how. Microphone. Has His Excellency said it? I am an African. I am South African. Proud to be among the first. I remember that I have always been among the first. Live in the land where it all began, Africa. Accompanying the first companion of Moses, the first witness to crucifixion, other than those who committed the ultimate sin of it, Simon. I am proud to be with Bilal al-Abashi. Africa gave birth to the people who rendered Africa's languages modern villages. The cultural expressions of enslaved Africans from the Caribbeans influenced in Asian Ghana, Achin, Chen Yuren, the one that was the founder of the revolutionary of China under Sun Yat-sen, just to mention that. Palmares Lasti is a formerly enslaved Africans. Formed the first modern republic. I know there is no single republic in the earth that resembles it. They had a very special experience. unmistakably, it existed longer than Soviet Union. But the longer of Southwest, we'll always refer to them as a reference, because when you remember as Africans, we don't remember, we don't know where we are, and we also try to refer to them as a model. Africans, for example, I know we are all centered about that. Dar es Salaam, which is also the language is Swahili, illustration of cosmopolitan life in lingua franca. We don't remember that. We don't know where it comes from. The Roman Empire included Africa, the process of all human rights. First, they used the word slavery before getting into the laws. When Palmares were trying to forbid in 1609, the founder of modern letters, social sciences or arts, were among them. And we as African unions we try to go before the successors of on the past, not to leave behind for people in Africa who are not, let's say, visitable. We never abandoned our African land. Never, ever. We didn't lose our roots and culture. I'm not saying that because of pride. But the question I ask myself today is that if we are first, how can we explain how come that we are now the last? And the answer is we have to relate to our recent past. Colonialism or Western action has impacted us. Different regimes that went through, and morality have always been partial. And as we look at them, try to take a step back. But I'm not trying to say that they try to make a compared to others. I want us to look within that what we have within us and try to look into the future. And we try to compare with the now structure that are in the world and see how the word function works is not necessarily the way we see or want to us to work. Today, we notice the restraint of Africa while Africans are not behaving the way they should be and losing our culture and treasures and values. We have to ask ourselves what will be happening of Africa today or tomorrow if we don't take measures now, if we don't participate in other things that can, or the African intelligence, artificial intelligence. We have to admit that. Although we are elected today, we have to look for better things, and that's right. But it's because we try to forget our past. We have slowly but surely given away our lands to others. We did it because others have always thought that the necessity or urgency to use our exigencies or urgencies or requests. And we go slowly and we try to give way to that. And I'm not, etc. These imperatives that imposed on us, etc., are coded as if we belong to their morality, we belong to them. We have no other limits. We have universal competence, like in the past. We try to believe that Africans have never been interested in it. However, there is something worse that is happening in Africa. Is the abandonment of Africa by its elites, either by necessity or by cynicals or by opportunism, meaning they want to go for opportunity. I cannot fix these sentiments and their effects. What I'm concerned with is that many hopeful and engaged Africans that are not able to meet with others across borders. But there's something worse than that. We, graduates and African churches, we all have a continental structure. Egyptian lecturers and researchers, Ethiopians and Somalian academics or professionals are not in sustained conversations with the South African, Namibians and Congolese. Nor do Guinean thinkers converse with those of Niger, Chad, Cameroon or else. They all inhabit disciplinary trenches from which they write and for journals, set up mostly for hours. We don't never take our request or our requirement. We always take for others. We consider others' requirements and necessities than ours. And it's not wicked. I'm saying it not from a wicked standpoint, no, but from an open mind and a very African, deeply rooted person. We have to understand that in most of the cases, but the pragmatism and solution that we are looking for should be generated outside Africa, and that's what relegates us to the second position or even the last. That's why I want to speak as an intellectual. And African intellectuals is no different from those of our young athletes, because there is no structure to retrain us here. There is nothing in such of infrastructure to keep us home and to be able to blossom out. This is an issue, and but the problem could be solved. That problem could be resolved, but we need to talk about it. Our young artists, they go to Europe, they have neither the structure nor anything else to help them innovate and blossom out at home. That's why some people got coherent, or other people call it globalization, but it's also called cosmopolitanism or transnationalism and the like. To the youth in my audience today, I must confess that the elders, of which I am one of them, have not given them the scholarly and methodological tools and frameworks in order to confront the failures in Africa and in Africa of Africa. Sometimes we miss the point to get to the concrete action, to get to practical action. Because on the Twitter that I saw, the concern or the issue of what will happen in Africa in the future and where will be the Africans. How will they get out of this? How will they be able to cope? In other terms or words, we are being marginalized and subjected to drastic other forms. In another word, legislation, we can pose a problem differently. How will we be able to continue to teach our children the way that we do? Does it serve our academic program at schools? The content, will that be useful to us? Recently, I'm not saying it but I said no to some of the curricula, given the remarks that I made. And I want to speak here as an intellectual. How can we get to, in my specific domain of specialization, political science, I have nothing to do more in that respect, except that it's not only thing that others want to control us or study our curriculum or study. I taught that science in other Western countries. I did some conferences and seminars in other countries all over the world, in Japan and others. In the meantime, I taught in Europe and others. So today I am here to speak about my professional experience and what I have shared with others. If you are in my field in political science in the United States, you would say science in American politics. Espagnol, c'est la même chose. Of Europe and the West. This is traditional speech by the European. From it. stress has been but the most important is all cultural region is also produced. They do not have not the way they want to. We made in law the deeds in others. Or satisfied. Cabral himself be as a person poetry, but we have never been outside that. The archives will speak about it. For centuries we have been in touch with Europeans, be it Muslim or Christians. The question or the issue about the archive is extremely important because it's all about our heritage and history. For example, in our disciplinary things, they will never tell that in Egypt, in Egyptian instituted meritocracy, they will never tell us that the Sahelian population has been oriented toward the borders and frontiers. Will never tell us that 200 years before the United States, they will never tell us that Haiti, the conception of human rights, has been embedded or imaginated in Haiti. But the Europeans will use it otherwise and say something different about the reality. The obligations of leading people to know that Guinea, that Sundiata Keita fought against Semangarata and he won over it. That Dar es Salaam and Wangara insisted long alongside that people of Congo in 1776 on the Revolution of Pearl in Ethiopia, which occurred in the same year as the American Revolution. Either within the branch of our decision making, we are not reminded enough to the fact that before Sundiata defeated Sonangolo Kante, that Africa was nearly on par with Britain in alchemy, in that the Yoruba in Nigeria produce blue glass. You know, what is really hacking in the science domain, the Yoruba of Nigeria, they obtain and produce blue glass nearly a century and a half before its appearance in Europe. We have to tell the truth. There is much social, moral, scientific, and institutional experimentations on this continent to inspire us or to cause us reject the dictatorship. We need to move forward from our clutches and our experience. Our own history and start but all these management and styles evolve integrity. I'm not going to repeat what I said in the past. The ideas and institutions are found in hands. The affair of Mali, Bamako, or It's we will fight it, try to put saying no conflict in because the money property is just belongs kita name to the constitutive of themselves. That our own leaders justice did not, no pun intended, to align international legal jurisprudence in line with post-colonial realities than any other actions. Of course, look at Japan today. They have the same case. People did not rise all of a sudden, so we decide of all. No, they didn't do that. It's only African who did that. The judge or the prosecutor. I'm telling all of this because I would like you to understand that Africans have the right to dispose of themselves and their land, and they have to think how to do that. We have changed this word but it has never been mentioned in the books. They have not risen up like that all of a sudden from Harvard University, for example, to do this. Let me get to the population. I started that. In the foundation contains that the values and either to destroy things. But he wants us to rehabilitate we are not the only one. But we have no Turkish government. I'm not against science, no, not at all. The problem is that we have to define the way that we Africans should understand science and practice it. It's not that we don't have science in Africa, we don't want to practice it. But it should be done the way it should be. When I told our task, we Africans, I mean, to innovate, to imagine the knowledge, so to speak, and instead of copying others, we have that intelligence and that. It's not impossible. I'm not only saying because some of our friends would say we consider it otherwise. No. New science. We have to encourage young people, but we never get to it if we don't talk to one another, if we don't share human sciences, social sciences, everywhere in the world has been put in place and supported by institutions, and people have talked to one another, have put in place strong and solid infrastructure and institutions to continue and promote it and develop it. The African solidarity, the true African solidarity, is mental. I'm telling you that. It's moral. I'm not here to make any assertion, but Africa needs an academy of its own. That's my point and that's my word. And Africa has the solution to that. We will not continue to quench fires here and there in Africa. And Africans even do not know how to associate their peers in order to solve our problems in the African way. I just want to remind you of something. After we had a national conference, everybody said alternatives, meaning alternatives or shifting of power. No one, when for example a car broke, we don't change the car automatically. We try to repair the car, try to see how to fix it and try to make it our own and move forward. Particularly in Africa, we have to consider that idea and see how we can move forward. When we say for example, microphone please. We cannot appoint the Minister of Justice and the General Prosecutor together at the same time. We need to see how things work. We have to think. We cannot grab things here and there randomly like that. We have to be able to stand and sit down and think, and we have to be able to anticipate different conflicts and fights in Africa, and considering our own resources, human resources, and any other one. The African wisdom requires us to sit down and talk like we used to do in the past with our ancestors, and try to see how we can solve our own issues. If we are able to do that, we can solve the issue in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and in other. I'm not saying that we have to reject the Western values and other things immediately. No. But there is no African blueprint or no African touch in any of these. We have to try to solve things from the African perspective as well, and which is sometimes very paying. We don't leave others to solve our issues when we can do it. It's from all our common interest. They try to present us their models and realities, but does it match with ours? Not necessarily. They may have some good things, but we should be able to promote ours and see how we can fix ours to our own benefit and our own good. For years, we have been mistaken by thinking that our ideas do not match with our... No, it doesn't work this way. It's not a problem of science, or we're not matching with that. Thought and ideas could be true, and they could be taught in different schools and considered otherwise, but our realities are also different, and we should be able to match all these. Again, Aimé Césaire, Frantz Fanon, Albert Memmi, Malcolm X, and Steve Biko were not mistaken in making the connection between enslavement and the capture of the minds of the enslaved by the enslaver. Think of Mali. These conflicts. But the right of possessing a land and the right of doing different is different. In Mali, the right started with the founding of a land. We are all confronted with the same problem, and we should speak from the same voice, one single voice. Our children should mimic us in that respect and follow in the footsteps. Archives that others have, these are theirs. Miss Aminata Traoré was partly correct in the viol de l'imaginaire. For instance, he in the Francophone France has provided a needed institutional infrastructure of collaboration between French and African universities. But we should find out the right word and the right ways. We will never develop Africa. We will never have African Renaissance if we don't have the right thought and the right institution and the right people. We have to learn. We have to finish and stop from apprenticeship. Anybody comes to power can innovate, but we never gave the means to Africans or leaders in Africa to work out the way they should, and we have given way to corruption. We should not be spectators or watchers, and the only way not to do that is to give hands to hand to one another and try to sit and think on our world. Our traders and businessmen, our artists, our young people need that, and need means to work out and get to that direction. We need some time to sit down and rethink that. Rethink our institutions, rethink our way of doing things, our manners. The academy that I'm talking about, how can we possibly have it? We have state people and we have resourceful people. We can put in place this institution. Everything I have promised to President Thabo Mbeki, His Excellency, before the end of July, I think we can have this reality can become true. And we will have a word today and we can promise President Thabo Mbeki that by the end of July we can have this come true. Because it exists already. In fact, we have situated by Mr. President, and we think that the foundation of Mr. Thabo Mbeki should be intact and it should be a workable institution. If His Excellency the President accept a reposition or repositioning, organizing a forum between those who have the capital and the money, the industries, professors and others, no other intellectual group and others can come and counterattack them. The academy that I have in Guinea is not a government project. It's not the project of the Ministry of Education. Science does not belong to the government or to the state. It's the scientists, it's their own. The intellectual and elite, the researchers and the university graduates that should come there to think and find solutions to our problem. I'm not excluding the government, no. They can have some contribution, but African Academy should be working jointly with the state and the government to find solutions to our problems. We're not going to ask any government or any African to ask to give some money, but whoever would give will tell everybody, this is our own common heritage, do what you can. But it will not go through a single president or a single statement. The academy should not be in South Africa or Morocco or whatever in Africa. We'll put it either in Cape Verde or what. We don't want it to be dominated by only one single person. The academy depends. The Thabo Mbeki library will be 3 antennas. We already propose that every year, President Thabo Mbeki will find ourselves somewhere around a single topic to be debated or discussed. Intellectuals, humanitarians, even head of states can come and discuss that with us. On one topic at a time, natural science, political science, geography, whatsoever, but one single topic discussed at one time. Nothing here in Guinea here that prevent us from doing that. And I'm sure we can get to it. With the blessing and support of President Thabo Mbeki, we'll get to it. The foundation works. We have the intellectuals and the elite for that, the human resource capable to do that. Who are not even me. It will be other people. But the African continent needs its intellectuals and its human resources. We cannot export someone for that. So in July, we'll try to see how we can implement this project and make it a reality. And before we invite him here, we call it the commitment of Conakry or the Conakry Convention. It's not a state convention, We owe that to our children, to our people, to everybody. We have to do that. We owe it to everybody. Nature has not given us all of these, and we will deprive ourselves for that. So when I said I would come today, I did not show it, but I am probably a single person to continue promoting that, but it's all together we can get to that. His Excellency President Thabo Mbeki, Excellency Prime Minister of Foreign Affairs, you have the mental capacity, you have the mental thought, you have, if you think that we can do it for our Mr. Jamaji Bismarck, Ataturk, Francis Bacon did for the continent. Why not us? So let us accept to assemble and gather. You give us the space to say what we want and do what we want. We'll leave you with an heritage. Thank you very much.
It is now time for some reflection on the lecture and on the role of the Conference to public and international affairs in catalyzing African. Please welcome Professor Siba N.
Normalement, après
Je m'appelle Edith François, professeur et directeur African Development, University of America and the School of Public and
Ah, celle-là, son équipe. Oh.
Je suis très honorée de participer à ce moment historique.
I am very honored on that historical moment to be on the Guinean soil to bring you the African word and African common heritage.
One greeting from the Chinese School and UNISA, one of the oldest institutions in South Africa. UNISA is one of the oldest distance education in the world. And this year, on the 24th of January 2023, UNISA will be celebrating 150 years birthday of existence. It is the mother to all universities in South Africa. So this year we are looking forward to see you in South Africa.
So the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs is one of the largest
and recent innovations of the partnerships that the Thabo Mbeki Foundation enjoys with UNISA. And it's a perfect model of the private-public partnerships in achieving the much-needed African Renaissance. The school emerged out of a conversation with several former heads of states that tasked President Mbeki to establish an entity that would train a critical mass of change agents and thought leaders on the continent for the social, political, cultural, economic renewal of the continent.